Welcome to Conscious Healing. This is Sherry Anshara, your host on this beautiful May 23rd, 2007. I am a medical intuitive, and I'm here each week to answer any questions that you may have. So give me a call at 888-235-7374, or in the Valley of the Sun here in Phoenix at 480-240-7111. We have new numbers, and I'm here each week to help you answer any questions about your health or about what's going on in your body, what's going on outside of your body. It's one and the same. If it's happening outside of you and you don't like it, there's something going on inside in your body at that cellular level of consciousness that you just might not be aware of. So again, you create your life in each moment. So if you have any health concerns or you want to take charge of your health and your life, just give us a call, because absolutely you are not your disease, your illness, addictions, depressions, or fears. And the truth is, there's only one addiction on this planet, only one, and that's validation. We will do anything to get validated. And once you really make that connection, all of the other stuff doesn't really matter. But what matters is you and what matters in your heart to create life as a conscious creator. I'm very pleased tonight. This is truly an international show. We have Steve Gooch, who's calling in from the United Kingdom, from England, and he is a Reiki master in the lineage of Reiki Jin Kei Do, and the author of the book, Reiki Jin Kei Do, The Way of Compassion and Wisdom. And he has been teaching Reiki in the UK and Egypt for the past 10 years, along with his wonderful other career as an artist. And I know he has two wonderful children that he has written me, and they're Marianne and Sam. So I am anxious to bring Steve Gooch onto the show. So Steve, welcome to Conscious Healing.
Hi. Nice to be here.
Well, it's lovely to have you here, and thank you so much for calling, because isn't it around midnight in the UK?
Oh, it's a bit later than that. It's about 1 a.m. now.
1 a.m. Well, I thank you so much for sharing your message and all the things that you're doing to support people in healing themselves. You know what, Steve, tell me a little bit about yourself. How did you get started? I usually always ask my guests, how did you get started in this journey of healing or this journey in Reiki?
I guess it goes back to the time when my mother died back in 92. I'd spent several years prior to that involved in meditation practices with various different disciplines, different schools, and hadn't really found any real direction for myself. Then my mother died, and I'd spent a lot of time looking at complementary therapies and other ways that would help her on her difficult journey. That as you know, she went through cancer actually for 9 months, and ultimately she did die, but she didn't die of cancer. I mean, the cancer was in remission, and I realised at that point that the lesson that I was learning from my mother's death was that there was a journey for me. I needed to explore this stuff. I needed to find out more about healing in a broader sense and what life was all about, and this thing called death that we're all facing at some point. I needed to find meaning in this, and I guess 2 or 3 years on from that, I'd been a teacher of art and design in schools in the UK, and I was looking for a new career direction. I wasn't really fulfilled in my role as a teacher. And then I just read this article on this thing called Reiki that I'd never heard of before. And I thought, well, yeah, this looks like a really good direction to go in. So the course was relatively quick, and it wasn't too far away. So I thought, well, I'll start with this. I'll give it a go and see where this takes me. So I did this 2-day workshop and did my first degree in Reiki training, and I was just completely knocked out by this energy that was pouring from my hands. I mean, it was just such an amazing experience. 3 months later, I went back and did the second level. Wasn't quite as dramatic as the first time. I mean, it's, when you have something for the first time, it's always quite special. So, but the second degree, that was amazing as well. And then 3 months later, I was invited to start a master's training. So I was practicing as a Reiki therapist during this period of time, and then I started the master's training. In about 97, end of 96, 97, I started teaching Reiki myself. But for me, Reiki is less to do now with it being a healing therapy for use on other people, and more to do with it being a personal spiritual development tool. I see it principally as a method for me to work on myself. And it's a journey that's still going on, and my commitment to Reiki as a personal development tool is deepening. And I guess I do engage much less with it now as a therapy for other people. And I'm exploring. Reiki is a very, very deep subject, and most people aren't aware of the depth that this practice goes to. So I'm spending an awful lot of time exploring this subject now, really.
You know what? It makes me very happy to hear you say that, because sometimes we get involved in the idea that we're healing other people, and it thrills me to hear you say that you really did it for you. I've had 2 near-death experiences, and in 91, and my second one, that really changed my life, which propelled me into the work that I do. But really, every day it's about me healing myself.
Absolutely. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a great thing to do, to be able to go out and offer healing to other people. But for me, a spiritual practice, if it's going to have value, it's got to be centered on you, the individual practitioner first. It's about you getting you right, healing you, becoming as perfect as you possibly can. And the more you do that, the more you work on yourself, the more you have to offer other people. So it seems in a sense to be quite a selfish practice in the first instance, just keeping it to yourself. But actually, the consequence of that is that you have so much more to give other people.
That's the truth. I call that centered in self instead of self-centered of the childish adult ego.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's, well, what I'm really curious about is when you talk, and I certainly hope that I pronounced that correctly. It's Reiki Jin Kei Do or Kei Do?
Reiki Jin Kei Do.
Kei Do, so I did it okay.
Yeah.
What is it that is the difference from other styles of Reiki? First, if you wouldn't mind, for those out in the audience, and I'm sure there are some that really don't know what Reiki is.
Sure. Reiki is a method that was developed. It was put together by a guy called Mikao Usui. He was a Tendai Buddhist practitioner, born in 1867, I think, but he developed the system around the early part of the 20th century. The date's unclear. And it was a method for self-perfection. It was a method that he developed for people to develop themselves spiritually. I mean, obviously the goal, as a Buddhist, his goal was for them to achieve enlightenment. That's the goal of all Buddhist practice, ultimately. And this was a method he put together for that purpose. One of the side effects of that system was that it could be used in a healing context for other people. It could be used as an alternative therapy. One of his students, a naval officer in the Japanese army called Chujiro Hayashi, wanted to learn Reiki for its therapeutic applications. And so most of the world's Reiki is descended from this guy, Chujiro Hayashi. And so over the last century or so, Reiki has lost its sort of focus as a spiritual development tool and become just a therapy, an alternative therapy. As great a therapy as it is, it's lost a lot of its original impetus, its original focus. So we have this thing called Reiki now, which is regarded as a hands-on healing therapy, and it's a very, very popular. It's probably the fastest growing therapy in the world today, in fact.
You know what, Steve? I have to agree with you with what that statement that you made is that it has in some way lost its original idea of what you're doing is doing that inner journey and then sharing it with other people, because I found certainly this is not a judgment, but just as a perspective that I've seen so many people that are doing it, but they're not being it. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think that there's sort of, it's getting watered down, so to speak. And I know that the people doing it have really great intentions, but maybe perhaps it's the way it's being taught. And I know that you've been that the first part is got to be about yourself. You know, physician, heal thyself. You are that. When I'm doing classes, I always say, first, before we can find the physician, heal thyself, we must look into the archaeologist inside of us and, start digging up the stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there is, I guess, a problem in the way Reiki is transmitted, the way it's taught. I mean, first of all, as a teacher, I'm very well aware of the fact that just because you know a subject doesn't mean you can teach the subject. And there is a lot of bad teaching going on, not just in Reiki, but in all fields. So, I mean, there is that, which is, I guess, a minor element to some degree. But yeah, I mean, Reiki, because it's such a quick thing to learn, there are a lot of people teaching Reiki in, half an hour, maybe a morning's class. And I mean, I met somebody 2 or 3 years ago who'd done the foundation level, the first degree, the practitioner level at second degree, and the master teacher level at third degree, all in one day. And this lady she'd actually, I think she twisted her ankle or something, and she said to me at the end of this day's training, not with me, I hasten to add, but she said at the end of this day's training, I don't understand why my foot still hurts. Instant cure, but this is actually quite typical of a lot of Reiki training that's going on, really, this sort of short, quick training that's really, I mean, the cynic in me says this is just about making money and not about actually empowering people and contributing something of value to the world.
I couldn't agree with you more. It makes my heart feel good that you say that again. And I know you're not criticizing, and neither am I, but that's the way it is, because you cannot learn Reiki in one day because they don't understand how the energy works or how it's connected, because you could actually injure someone by moving energy that is not ready to be moved. Sure. And so I really applaud you for being so candid and forthright and so honest. It's just, I have to laud you for that. Well, in that idea of the Reiki Jin Kei Do, what is the difference?
Reiki Jin Kei Do shares, a common root with all of the styles of Reiki back to its founder, Mikao Usui. It also shares a common root back to this guy, Chujiro Hayashi, who was...
How do you spell his name?
Sorry?
How do you spell his name? I'm always interested.
Chujiro Hayashi? Chujiro Hayashi.
Okay. Chujiro Hayashi. Okay,
yeah.
Thank you. And he was in the military.
Yeah, he was a Japanese naval officer, a captain, I think. And he was he shared part of the tradition of Jin Kei Do. So, in common with 99% of all Reiki in the world, we can trace our roots back through Chujiro Hayashi back to Mikao Usui. However, the difference with Jin Kei Do is that Chujiro Hayashi passed on a system to not only the students that then developed most of the Reiki in the world as we know it today, but also to a close friend or possibly relative, we're unsure about this, called Sensei Takuchi, who was the abbot of a Zen monastery in Japan. Now, he didn't just give Takuchi the traditional Reiki training that he passed on to other people. He also gave Takuchi a very special meditation called the Buddho meditation. The Buddho meditation had been given to Hayashi by Usui. Now, Usui had practiced this meditation on Mount Kurama in Japan, which is a sacred mountain, as part of his normal daily meditation routine. This was a very powerful tantric meditation from Hayashi Yoga Tantra that Usui worked with and achieved a moment of satori, or enlightenment, a glimpse of enlightenment. It was critical to his development of his personal spiritual development system, but not critical in the slightest to Reiki as a hands-on therapy. So Usui had this moment of enlightenment. The Buddho meditation was passed on to Hayashi, who then passed it on to Takuchi. So we have a line of teachers here. Takuchi then passed it on to his student, a guy called Seiji Takamori. Now, Takamori was a pioneer in searching out meditation techniques and developing himself with the intention of achieving enlightenment in that lifetime. He recognized within this Buddho meditation there was something very important, something that linked in with the origins of the Reiki system. And he went off with the permission of his teacher to research this Buddho meditation. And he spent 20 years searching Nepal and northern India and through the Himalayas, trying to find the origins of this powerful Buddho meditation. Now, what Takamori found was a group of monks in Nepal who still practice this Buddho. And it was a Buddho system. It wasn't just a meditation. What he discovered was that the meditation that he'd received from his teacher was actually just a fragment. It wasn't the complete meditation. And he learnt with these monks the complete Buddho meditation and the complete system that surrounded this Buddho meditation. So we have this system called the Buddho system of healing. Now, it's been said that this Buddho system of healing is still practiced today in various parts of the world, though it's very difficult to track down. In any case, we have this system that was then passed on, along with the secular Reiki system, as everybody else in the world knows it, to his student, Ranga Premaratna, who is the current head of the Jin Kei Do lineage. So the Buddho system is taught as a twin stream alongside the standard secular Reiki healing therapy. But the Buddho system contains the origins of much of the current Reiki system as we know it. For instance, we use powerful symbols, healing symbols within Reiki. The origins of those symbols are buried in the Buddho system. So we can pinpoint precisely where every single one of those symbols comes from and exactly what they mean and what they do. The Reiki symbols are in a sense, a sort of watered-down version of the original symbolic means that are buried in the Buddho system. So Buddho being a system of self-perfection, of self-development, more than it can be used as a complementary therapy, it has informed very much and flavored the Jin Kei Do expression of secular Reiki. So within Jin Kei Do, Reiki is seen very much as this personal spiritual development tool. It's getting back to what Usui was originally trying to do for his students, give them tools to develop themselves spiritually. So, yes, Reiki Jin Kei Do is a healing therapy, just as all of the systems of Reiki are, but it does have this very strong focus on personal spiritual development, and it gives students the tools for them to try and achieve enlightenment in their lifetimes.
Well, it sounds fascinating. So you incorporate that Buddha meditation in that, and is that how I understand it?
Yeah, I mean, it's the Buddho meditation is there and it is taught to students, but it is not taught within the context of the secular Reiki system. The Buddho system has flavored our Reiki, so there are simplified versions of the Buddho meditation within our Reiki practice, but we don't teach the Buddho system within Reiki. It's a separate practice that students can go on to study at a later time.
Well, it certainly sounds that it would help them in not only in personally within their own body, but in helping them understand what's going on in other people's body when they're practicing their Reiki.
Absolutely.
I just find that so fascinating. Well, those out in the listening audience, give us a call at 888-235-7374, or locally in the Valley of the Sun here in Phoenix as 480-240-7111. We have a very fascinating guest tonight. This is Steve Gooch, and he's a Reiki master, and he practices Reiki Jin Kei Do, and author of the book Reiki Jin Kei Do, The Way of Compassion and Wisdom. We have about 4 minutes, Steve, before we go to break. Tell us about your book. Why is your book different than most Reiki books?
Right. Okay.
And even if we can't do the whole answer in 4 minutes, we'll pick it up after break.
Sure. I mean, I've read pretty much every book on Reiki that's been written, and there's a lot of really good stuff out there, a lot of not so good stuff. And all of these books, without exception, were talking about Reiki as a complementary therapy, how to practice as a healing therapist. And I thought, look, this is just not what Reiki is about. There is so much more to this.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah. Absolutely. It just needed to be done. Somebody needed to say, look, this is okay, but this is a side effect. Let's get to what Reiki is really all about. Let's get this system sorted out and people learn it so they can work on themselves and make the world a better place that way, because they are not going to make the world a better place just working as therapists.
I'm so happy to hear you say that. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm still here, yeah.
It scared me. I thought,
break.
No, I thought we lost. Well, I just find it so fascinating. When you are doing this Reiki, this Jin Kei Do Reiki with someone else, what would you say that you notice? Because we only have about 2.5 minutes before break. What would you say that you would notice the difference than if you were just using Reiki as a practice with someone?
When I use Reiki in a therapeutic context, I always find that those that have received Reiki elsewhere find that the treatment from me or one of my students or another Jin Kei Do practitioner is very much stronger than they've experienced before. And I think there's the important thing in that is that there is a technique that we use when we give a treatment that makes a difference. There's a meditation that we use.
Excuse me.
Sets it apart from other practitioners.
And I've had practitioners do Reiki on me, and some of them, honestly, I can honestly say nothing happened. I didn't feel anything, and I'm very open and receptive in the work that I do. And yet I've encountered a few where we were really in tune. So I didn't know if we just didn't have compatible bands of energy, because I didn't feel in any way that I was blocking them. But what I did feel after was that they really didn't have an understanding of the movement of energy, which it sounds to me like you really help your students connect to that.
Well, I think that's important. I think if you're going to work with this system, either on yourself or on other people, and certainly on other people, you really need to know what it is you're working with and how energy works. But also there's this thing called a Reiki attunement, which is a sacred process which switches on, if you like, switches on the energy or boosts up the connection to the universal energy field. And if that's not done properly, and it invariably isn't done properly, I mean, lots of times I've come across some bad attunements. There isn't the connection, and they're not doing Reiki.
Yes, you don't know what they're doing. Well, hold that thought. Steve, I'm so happy to have you on the show. We're just getting ready to go to break. And thank you so much for calling in. And I can't wait to ask you some more questions. This is Sherry Anshara, Medical Intuitive with Conscious Healing, this beautiful May 23rd. We're just getting ready to go to break. We are talking with Steve Gooch, a Reiki master in the lineage of Reiki Jin Kei Do. And we will be back after the break with more questions for Steve Gooch. So I'm pleased to have Steve Gooch. He is a Reiki master, as he called it, in the lineage of Reiki Jin Kei Do, and he's author of the book Reiki Jin Kei Do, The Way of Compassion and Wisdom. And I know that he is in the editing stages, like me, of his new book. So Steve, welcome back.
Hi.
And thank you for calling in. This is, again, truly an international show. Whereabouts are you in the UK?
A little town called Rugby, which is right in the middle of the country.
It sounds fascinating. I bet you have all those, like a little bit rolling and all the beautiful trees and flowers.
Oh, excuse me. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's about 10 miles away from Shakespeare's birthplace, so it's lots of nice countryside around here and little cottages and, nice area.
And it probably has just fabulous energy.
It does, yeah.
Ancient and modern at the same time.
Absolutely.
Good. Well, how can people get you, because people go into the archive shows here too. How could someone get a hold of you? How could they get a hold of your book?
Well, the book's available in any bookshop. Just go in and order it, or pick it up off the shelf, or it's available on all of the internet book sites too. They can contact me via my website, or and the book gives my email address in any case. So if anyone's actually interested in learning Jin Kei Do, they should get a copy of the book, because the book has actually got a worldwide directory of Jin Kei Do masters at the back, and many of them are in the States, so they can find a teacher quite easily via that. Or there's a
how could they email you? How could they email you?
Well, they can email me at sgooch@omahum.org. That's omahum.org.
Okay. And you probably can get your book on Amazon.com.
Sure. Yeah, you can get it on Amazon.com, and I've got a semi-regular blog going on Amazon.com as well, so they can pick up any of my latest thoughts or revelations on Jin Kei Do via Amazon.com as well.
Well, that's fabulous. I love it. Okay, I have some other questions for you. I have seen people do what is known as Reiki attunements, but it seems to me that you are really in tune at that energetic cellular level in your attunement. How do you do the attunement differently, if there is a difference?
Yeah, I think there is a difference. Well, there's a time factor, which is not absolutely critical at all, but Jin Kei Do attunements are actually quite protracted affairs. I mean, they take quite a long time. For instance, a first degree attunement, which seems to take no more than 4 or 5 minutes with some masters. If I'm attuning a student to first degree, it can take me half an hour or 45 minutes. And I think the important thing with an attunement is you've got to get it right. There's no point just going through this process and just assuming, that it's okay. You've got to check the energy. You've got to check that there's an increase in energy at each stage. So the Jin Kei Do attunements are actually very detailed. They're very much about making sure that at each stage that part of the process has done the job that it was designed to do. So there is a big difference, I think.
Well, it sounds like that, and it sounds like when it's complete or not complete. And I would say that some of the, the assembly line Reiki, practitioners, again, not in judgment in any way, I don't believe they really know where they are in that process sometime.
No, and I don't think they always know what's actually happened in the attunement, whether there's been an increase in energy flow or not, or what the effects of that energy flow are having on the person that they're working on. And I think these are important factors. I think if you're going to introduce somebody to a spiritual practice and actually do something to that person's energy field, first of all, it's a very sacred process. And secondly, I think you owe it to that person to make sure that at each stage they've been honored by you doing the process in the way it's meant to be done and making sure it works, that they get the result that they're there for.
Well, I agree with you, and I like the terminology that you use. It is a sacred process. It absolutely is. But sometimes it just seems like there's that missing component because you are so connected to someone, and in that connection, I really believe you must understand what the energy is doing in the body and where it goes and how it moves and how it releases.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, there is a teaching in many spiritual traditions, and I'm sure it's one that you'll resonate with in as much as this idea that there is no such thing as individuality. We are all expressions of this one universal life force of God, or whatever you want to call it. We're all one. And when we come together in an attunement process, the teacher and the student, there is very much a sense that we're coming back home to that state of oneness. And in coming home to that state of oneness, there is very much it is very much a part of the teacher to feel that connection and become one with the student and know what is happening with that person's energy field, what it feels like. What the energy is doing, in what way is it benefiting that person. And I think it is important to at least endeavour to try and become in tune with this state of oneness when you're doing an attunement. And this is why I guess I have some difficulty with some modern expressions of Reiki when you find Reiki attunements on the internet, and you can get them over the telephone, or you can read them in a book and attune yourself. And I think, well, okay, well, this is modern Western materialism just going the way it always does, but this is not Reiki. This is not what Reiki is about. A Reiki attunement is a sacred, special process for the teacher and the student. And I think that the teacher owes it to the student to be there in person, to actually perform this ceremony themselves. It's a point of honor, I think, and certainly within Jin Kei Do, all the attunements by all of the masters across the world are done in person. You don't get attunements over the internet in Jin Kei Do, I'm glad to say.
Thank you so much for your words of wisdom, but the practical side of it, I so appreciate your honesty and your candor and your message getting out there. So, what prompted you? Is it because that you noticed that, or you're so in tune? Is that what prompted you to write your book?
Well, yeah. I mean, it was partly because I was reading so often about Reiki just being a hands-on therapy. And I think that's a great way of working with Reiki. I think it's a wonderful thing for people to do, to go out and work in a healing context on individuals that are suffering. This is one of the goals of practice, to be able to help people. But there was something missing in all of these books. There was an occasional mention of Reiki being a personal spiritual development tool, but nobody was telling anybody how they could use it in this way. Nobody was giving them any meditations. Nobody was emphasizing the need to work on yourself. And I thought, there is a need for a book to actually get back to what Reiki is all about. Let's get back to the core of this system and see this system as a personal spiritual practice in the first instance, whose ultimate expression, as you develop this idea, as you develop the qualities of compassion and wisdom, is then to go out and work with it in a therapeutic context. But you start with yourself. When you start with yourself, I mean, if you think of people like the Dalai Lama or any big spiritual figure, you only need to be in their presence to feel the healing effect of them working on themselves. When they work on themselves, the whole world benefits. If you just work with Reiki as a therapy, the person under your hand benefits, but that's all.
Kudos to you for saying that. I always say that when I'm working with my clients or people that are in my classes, that I'm the one that gets the biggest benefit. First,
Yeah.
I do. There's no doubt about it. And I always say, they'll say, well, when the student is ready, the teacher shows up. I always tell them, you're the student and you're the teacher. And I get to be the benefactor. I get to benefit from this.
Absolutely.
And that's the truth. We must look into our own selves. So, kudos to you. What do you see as a future path between Reiki and the future path of Reiki Jin Kei Do?
That's a tricky one, really. I mean, Jin Kei Do is growing as a practice around the world. I mean, it is still very much a minority practice, I guess. I mean, there's 99% of the Reiki in the world is still very much focused on this idea of Reiki being just a healing therapy. And I guess that will continue to grow. That will be the dominant stream of Reiki for a very long time to come. Jin Kei Do is growing slowly, and I think it's growing in a way that it needs to grow. It's becoming an expression of another way of working with Reiki for those that are ready for it. Not everybody is ready for this system. Not everybody wants to work on themselves. Their focus is on other people. So I think Reiki Jin Kei Do will grow alongside other traditions in Reiki, but I think it's always going to be a minority practice, really.
Well, I have to agree with you on that. A lot of people, they want to be in the healing arts, but the fact is that you've got to work on yourself first. Does that make sense? You have to. It's inherent to do that so that you can have a better understanding or comprehension of what's going on with the clients that you're working with.
Yeah.
It's it's like if you're a window washer and you're only going to wash one side of the window, and if you're only washing the inside, you can't see outside. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
so,
it does.
I don't know if that's a good metaphor or not.
That one.
So that's, you have to see both sides of the glass. That's all there is to that. And both sides of the mirror. Well, in your new book that you're writing about, what is the new book about?
Right. Well, the new book, I'm editing the new book actually. I'm writing 2 chapters and editing the rest. The rest of it is being written by Jin Kei Do masters around the world. There's another 2 here in the UK. There's 3 in the States and 2 in Australia, including the head of the tradition, Ranga Premaratna. And it's basically on the Buddho system of healing. It's the system from which Reiki was largely developed. And the reason there are so many of us working on this is because it is such an incredibly complex and all-encompassing subject that I actually don't think there's any one person in the world that has the breadth of knowledge to write this on their own. So I pulled in experts in their various fields to write particular chapters for this new book, and I think it's some way off yet, actually. But it's an amazing book to read. The bits that I've seen so far are just jaw-droppingly stunning. There's nothing at all like this out there.
Well, you truly are a paradigm shifter. Plus, you're an educator, and you are sharing what Reiki was about in the beginning. Somehow I believe some of it got lost in the translation.
Sure. Absolutely.
Without judging, does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, it's 100 years in some senses isn't a very long time, but an awful lot of Chinese whispers can go on in that time, and material can get lost and mislaid and reinterpreted. And I think there is a real need to find out what Reiki was really for and what its potential really is. And that's what I'm trying to do with the book that I've got out and this new book. Let's, even if it's not read by many people, at least it's out there and it's available,
And because it is out there and available, it will be drawn to the correct people that will help spread that, that message of what it was about. how could you see, like, as a medical intuitive, I work with people at their cellular level and am able to tune in to their issues. I don't tell them that they have cancer. What I ask them to do is find out why they created it, in the first place. How would you see Reiki being incorporated into other modalities, whatever that may be? Energy work, energy medicine, we've got about 6.5 minutes to go. How could you see that could be incorporated in a real productive way?
Sure. Well, Reiki can be used in conjunction with all other therapies. There's no other form of treatment that you can't combine Reiki with. It only ever has beneficial results, and it enhances other therapies. Whatever good is being done by that therapeutic process is enhanced by the application of Reiki. And I know people that I've trained that have used it alongside reflexology and acupuncture and acupressure and aromatherapy, and you name it, you can combine Reiki with it, and it just enhances everything, and including modern Western medical interventions as well. You can combine Reiki with those. And Reiki is being used more and more. Certainly here in the UK, it's being used within the National Health Service to some degree now. So that's really good news for the system of Reiki, that it's actually becoming more and more widely available.
That's good. I would say it's happening here in the United States, but we have the pharmaceutical companies here.
Sure. Yeah.
That, run a lot of things. I know a friend of mine, a physician friend of mine at Harvard, he's doing a research on functional medicine, which really makes more sense to me to be able to incorporate other things besides functional, not just in the energetic field, but food and supplements and how all of that works together. For a while here in the United States was integrative medicine, and I really didn't care for that idea, because when you integrate something, somebody has to win and somebody has to lose. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So I really love your idea of how it does incorporate in it, because I know I'm a Reiki master. I use it in my own practice to help me take it to the next level, in the cellular energy work that I do. And I just say congratulations and kudos to you. What I was intrigued about you the most when I read, some of your information was how dedicated you are to putting out or disseminating the information. See, I'm a real history buff. I always want to know why things work the way they do. And that's what I liked about you, is that this information that you're providing, you're giving them history, you're showing them how it works, why it works, how you can use it, and you are really bringing back the ancient, incorporating it with the modern or the current.
Well, I think that's important. We're inquisitive people. We want to know these things, and I think it's important to put that stuff out there, and so and feed people's hunger for that sort of intellectual knowledge. But the message really of Reiki is it's just love. That's all it is at the end of the day, and it's just about bringing more love into your life and having more love to give others. And once you've taken on board all that intellectual stuff about the history and how it works, etc., we just come back to this one basic message. Reiki is about the expression of love and spreading love to as many people as possible.
Your words are making my heart sing, because that's really what it's about, and that it transcends religion, it transcends belief systems, it transcends all of that, and it's that connection of oneness. That's really what it's about. I agree with you.
Yeah.
And you can't make the connection. Well, we only have 2 minutes to go. Steve, thank you so much. Do you have 1 minute of words of wisdom for our listening audience?
Oh, 1 minute of wisdom. whatever you do, whether you're involved in Reiki or not, just work on expressing love to as many people as you can, because you cannot lose with expressing love. The more love you give, the more love you have to give. And there is no greater truth than expressing love. So that's my message, really.
I love your message. Steve, thank you for calling in at 1 o'clock in the morning from the UK, and blessings to you, and always, always for the work that you do. Please keep in touch with me. You've got the email, because I will look forward to this new book as well as reading your current book. And thank you so much for the work that you're doing and the love that you're sharing and the practical side of it. That's my favorite word in the English language, is practical. And so I thank you so much for being a guest. Have a wonderful, wonderful sleep tonight.
I will. Thank you very much.
You deserve it. Thank you so much again. I really appreciate it. It was wonderful chatting with you. And please keep in touch and let me know.
I will do. Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.